Why is it important to be financially independent? Welcome back. Now, everyone that's working has a vision. Well, maybe it's even a dream, but everyone wants to be financially independent, and that's our question today. So what comes to mind when you think about financial independence? Well, for a lot of people, what comes to mind is that they're going to be rich or they're going to be famous or whatever. But the answer that usually comes to mind is, why do you want to be rich and why do you want to be famous? Well, a lot of people realize that a steady job is really a myth. In other words, job security is not there because the world changed, and every time the world keeps changing, people keep losing their job. So it's a myth for the average person. So if you could become financially independent, then you could control your destiny. Now, my name is Ted Thomas. I've been involved in being an entrepreneur for the past 30 years. I work from home in a small office. That doesn't mean I could hold that back and only make small revenue. I can make as much as I want, but I have to work hard to do that. So people that want to be entrepreneurs have to have a different approach to it. All right, now most of these entrepreneurs work from home, and they work ridiculous hours, and they invest their whole savings. In other words, their entire saving is invested in those businesses. And what do? They neglect their personal relationships. Why do they do all that? Because they all have a dream of being successful or a vision of being a freelancer or an entrepreneur. So I said they dream of that. It's okay to have the vision. Having the dream of it means you're going to have to really work to make that dream come true. Now, entrepreneurs generally think differently. What do I mean by that? Well, they're willing to take risks. Now, most entrepreneurs feel that being in the business world is risky if they're working for someone else. So why not take that risk? And they find the risk is worthwhile doing it themselves. So I encourage people to do that. Now, business is not a piece of cake. That's for sure. Now, everybody hears that, but for sure, it requires a massive amount of time, effort, and lots of determination. All right, so how about being your own boss? Is that what you want to be? Well, I certainly understand that. As a matter of fact, we admire people that want to strive and will actually move forward and become what I call entrepreneurs. You might call freelancers, but they're basically in business for themselves. Now, when I started out, I had the same vision that you have the same vision. What is that? You want to do things on your own. Well, if you're that entrepreneur, just add up the facts. Is it going to be easy? I don't think so. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a counselor, so I can't give you that kind of education. I don't have a couch in my office and you can tell me all your problems and whatever. But I can tell you, if you want to be in business, you're going to have to be determined, you're going to have to be pig-headed, stubborn, and you're going to have to start thinking about how you're going to get the money to do all that. So financial independence is on the horizon. It's in the vision for everybody. A lot of people dream about it. So what are we talking about today? Why is it important to be financially independent? It's so that you can have the job security that you want, number one, but number two, you don't have to take direction from anybody else. So as we grow, all of us admire those people. We give them status because they struck out on their own and they go to work for themselves. Not an easy job to do. But so we admire them and we admire the process that they're allowed to do that. All right, if you ask those people why they did it, they'll probably tell you they wanted to get out of the rat race. Well, I'm not sure they always get out because I see people that quit their job working 40 hours a week and then they go home and they work 60 hours a week. Well, 60 hours is a lot more than 40, that's for sure, and I'm not so sure that they're going to get a paycheck. So it really takes a special person to be able to do that. So why is it important to be financially independent? Probably not because you're going to be rich or because you're going to be famous. It's probably going to be so that you can control your own security. In other words, that 40 or 60 hours a week, you're working for yourself and you're putting in money in your account. Now, keep in mind, you put up all the risk money when you're in business for yourself. All right. Now, the first rule that I have, I call it the Ted Thomas rule number one, and that's a real simple rule. Don't quit your job until you know you have enough revenue in place to take care of yourself. Let's not forget taking care of your family and make sure you can take care of that business, okay? Now, I know the boss is a complete pain in the assets. I get it, okay? You don't want to work for somebody else. All right, that's fair. It's natural. You want to work for yourself. However, don't quit your job. So that's rule 1, and it's also rule 2 to review rule 1. That is, don't quit that job, because you need to take care of your family, take care of that business, and take care of yourself. If you don't have enough money put away, you're going to have a lot more worries than being financially independent. You're going to have to worry about going bankrupt, and that's no fun. All right, so job security is a myth, okay? So if you know how to take care of yourself, you're creating your security for yourself. So if you want to be financially independent, well, that's the way to do it. Are you cut out to build a business yourself? Are you able to make a corporation? Are you capable to work in a corporation? Some people can't do that, so they work as a freelancer, or they go in and become an entrepreneur and work for themselves. All right, so what is your vision? What's your desire? What is your dream? I can assure you it's going to be a difficult ride, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's a piece of cake. It's not. However, the freedom of choice gives you a life chance. You can do what you want with your life if you can make that choice and then become independent as an entrepreneur. All right, entrepreneurs and freelancers can do what they want, but it's up to them to generate their business. So when I said don't quit your job, I mean that, because the revenue doesn't always come in on a regular basis. Sometimes you get a lot of revenue in, and then sometimes you can't get people to pay you. So you're going to have to make sure that you've got the revenue taken care of so you can take care of your family and pay the bills in that business. Okay, so this episode is not a dream world, because I don't want to paint it as all sugar-coated. You're going to have to work, and I don't know. If you worked hard in that corporation, that's good. Maybe you didn't fit in a corporation. So many people end up as freelancers and end up as entrepreneurs because they don't fit in a corporation. Maybe you're the kind of person that would prefer to work all night rather than work all day. Maybe you're the kind of person that wants to work in an office all by yourself. Or maybe you like to visit when there's a lot of people around. I don't know what it is, but if you don't fit in a corporation, well, certainly if you're going to become an entrepreneur, you're going to have to suddenly become focused, you're going to have to become determined, and you're going to have to become pig-headed stubborn about earning revenue. Because where's the revenue going to come from? All the revenue that comes in, people that are financially independent, usually comes in from themselves. What's our question today? The question is, why is it important to be financially independent? Well, it's not so much to be famous, it's not so much to be rich, it's so that you can choose, so that you can be financially independent and you don't have a boss telling you what to do. So you have life choice when you're financially independent, and you have income choice. In other words, you can take risks that you couldn't otherwise take, because if you take a risk with your job and you lose it, who's going to take care of your family? Well, you have to think about that. So I know who you are. You hate the time clock. You hate the 9 to 5. Can't say as I blame you. A lot of people don't like that. Maybe you work better at night. Maybe you work better afternoons. That's going to be up to you. If you want to be an entrepreneur, the availability is certainly there, and I'll tell you about a way to do that. So maybe this fits for you. Let's see what you. Here's what I did. I didn't want to work for a big company. I wanted to work for myself. And here's what I did. I found a business that didn't fit for everybody else, and it was simply tax defaulted property. And what was that? It was nothing more than traditional real estate where people hadn't paid their taxes. Now, what is that all about? Well, you know traditional real estate. Number one, it's homes. It could be residential lots. It could be small farms. It could be small apartments. All right. Thousands of people work in that business. Brokers work in that business. Attorneys work. Title companies, agents, handymen, all kinds of people work in the traditional real estate business. What happens when people don't pay their tax? Well, a simple thing happens. If people don't pay their tax, the local government is going to say, you have to pay tax. All right. If you don't pay that tax, the legislature has passed laws. And the laws say, if you don't pay the tax, we're going to notify the county treasurer. County treasurer is going to levy the tax. They're going to try to collect the tax. If they can't collect the tax, they're going to confiscate the property. Once they confiscate the property, they just want to get rid of it. So what do? They discount it 60, 70, 80%. Well, folks, if they're going to discount those properties 80% and I find out about it, it's available in all 3,000 counties. What do? I want to go buy those properties for 10 and 20 cents, 30 cents on the dollar and resell them. So think about that. All right, so it's just traditional real estate that's been tax defaulted. Does that mean these are brand new shiny properties? No, they're used and abused. Some of them are junk, don't buy the junk. Some of them are move-in quality. The point is, the owner hasn't paid the tax. The county government said if you don't pay the tax, they confiscate the property and they resell it at huge discounts. Now, ask yourself this question. If you could buy property for 60, 70, and 80% discounts, would you do that? Maybe you'd have to borrow the money from someone else to do it. But if you bought for 60 and 70 and 80% discount, could you turn it around and resell it for anything you wanted? Well, you'd be allowed to do that because that's how it works. Now, this has been going on for 200 years. I didn't invent it by any means. It's been going on for 200 years. So you can buy these properties in all 3,000 counties across the United States. So here, let's kind of put it together and so you understand it from a math standpoint. So let's say the property had a value of $200,000. Nobody paid the tax. The county confiscates it. They sell it. So when they sell it, they're going to sell it at rock bottom dollar. Why? Because they just want to get rid of it. So let's say you bought it for 20 cents on the dollar. So now it's a $200,000 property. You bought it for $40,000. That would be a great deal. Now, what are you going to do about selling it? Well, you're going to put it on eBay. You're going to put it on Craigslist. You're going to put it on the multiple listing service. Let's say you try to sell it for $100,000, not for $200,000. Well, at $100,000, that all the bargain hunters in the world are going to be there to buy your property. So if you could sell it at 100 and you bought it at 40, that leaves you margin on the property. Think about the margin on the property. You bought it for 40 and now you sold it for 100. Well, that's a year's pay for the average person. So vision yourself on the way to becoming wealthy. Why? Because you're buying with lots of margin and you're buying in a marketplace that the rest of the world doesn't know about. Now, my name is Ted Thomas. If you'd like to see an auction list, there's one right below me. If you decide to get into business like this, don't buy any property that you haven't seen. You have to have boots on the ground. Why? What if there was a hurricane? What if there was a fire? What if it was next to a chicken farm? What if there was a windstorm and damaged it? Well, you want to make sure that you've seen the property before you buy it. And you want to make sure that it's going to have the value you want to sell it for. So a $200,000 value from the tax man might be wrong. That might be worth a lot less than that. Well, you better make sure it's worth $100,000 because you're going to try to buy it at 40 and sell it at 100. So you need to have an exit strategy. So number one, boots on the ground. Number two, have an exit strategy. I'm Ted Thomas.